Well, hello and welcome to Healing Body, Mind, and Soul with Aeriol. I'm here with my dear friend, Dr. Mike, and today we're going to be talking about science-based nutrition and really find out what the building blocks are for these machines that we call our body and how to put the best fuel and energy into them to get the most out of our experience here. Dr. Mike is an expert, and I'm sure you're going to want to lean in and hear what he has to say. How are you doing today, Dr. Mike?
I'm doing fantastic, Aeriol.
Awesome.
About yourself? How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm having a great, it's just 2020. We're just fresh, and I'm so excited about all the projects I have going, about my book project and all the things that are happening on the Body, Mind, and Healing Body, Mind, and Soul network. It is super exciting. I know in our last discussion, we talked a little bit about some of the activism that you're doing over in your part of the country. Can you just give us a real brief snippet on that again?
Oh, sure.
I bet it's really exciting over there.
It's an exciting day today because a lot of my friends are down in Trenton, New Jersey, and they actually came from a lot of states around because, for example, when this bill got passed, a similar type of bill in New York State, only 200 people showed up. A friend of mine that's down there now, he said it's a minimum of 5,000 people. And they're chanting, "In God we trust, in God we trust," outside the State House. And I was watching two different Facebook Lives, one from inside, one from outside the State House. Not the steakhouse, the State House. And
that's a very important distinction.
I know, but I'm sure there's steakhouses down in Trenton too, though. But it's just phenomenal what's going on down there because
how exciting.
They made a tragic error in judgment because to get the 1 pound of flesh, like from Macbeth, a pound of flesh, which was one more vote of one senator to tip the scales and pass it through the Senate, he had to carve out that private schools could possibly choose not to have to enforce this regulation.
Oh.
But then it created a lot of distinction between the haves and the have-nots. And the people that cannot afford to send their children to private school. So it created a whole
other issue.
For the Blacks and Latinos all coming together from Newark and from all these areas with, lower income areas to feel that basically the rich are buying their way out of it. So it created a whole problem. So it already had passed the assembly, and then one of the members of the assembly, minority individual, came out and said, basically got enough votes together now to defeat it in the assembly. So it has to first pass the Senate, but it doesn't even look like it's going to pass the Senate because somebody I know, one of the senators, came out and told somebody else I know that it's not going to pass. So we'll see. But in the news, they had it basically all signed, sealed, and delivered. And what happened was I had discovered that, and I sent you some of the paperwork on this, and I had actually prayed on New Year's Eve. I prayed for guidance to God, and I had my prayers answered, and I woke up 2 o'clock in the morning, New Year's morning, and started working on this because I wanted to look at the New Jersey Constitution, because I didn't know that the New Jersey Constitution was only drafted in 1947 and ratified in 1948. But it starts off with the same 3 words as the US Constitution, "We the people." It's time to give the power back to the people because we live, and I was corrected, because we do not live in a democracy. We live in a republic. And when you do the Pledge of Allegiance, under the republic for which it stands, you have to remember that from the Pledge of Allegiance, which we all remember that, doing that every day in school for probably 13 years at least.
Yeah.
And that there's a distinction with the republic, and not to go into the details on that, but it's slightly different from a democracy. But what I did is I looked at that and discovered that this bill violated 7 aspects of the New Jersey Constitution, and that the senators and the assemblymen and assemblywomen have to take an oath and affirmation of office where they pledge allegiance to the U.S. and the New Jersey Constitution. And if it's violating 7 aspects of the Constitution, If they vote for it, it's actually waging war against the Constitution and a form of treason. That's not treason like they're going to overthrow the government. It's treason because they're undermining the Constitution. And then what happens is that each person that would have voted for it, it's like me doing brain surgery as a chiropractor.
Please don't do brain surgery, Dr. Mike.
I can't do brain surgery. My malpractice insurance company's going to be happy about that? I don't think so. So even, for example, if you have a umbrella liability policy, which I have myself, which is always good to have, an umbrella policy in case anything else happens, you get extra coverage. But if you have an umbrella policy and you do something that is like assaulting somebody, they're not going to cover you. You go and punch somebody and break the jaw. No insurance company is going to cover that. So these senators and assembly people, if they voted for the bill and violated the Constitution, they would break their oath and affirmation of office, could be impeached and also civilly and criminally liable for any injuries or death that would occur because of an unconstitutional bill being, put into law. And then I also visited the Attorney General's office on last Monday, and hand-delivered, who's also a Sikh, the Attorney General. And he is a very fair person, and he's actually from my county, from Bergen County. And even though he's a Democrat, a lot of these people are Democrats voting for it, I'm sure that that's the next course of action. And then after that, I've got a couple other courses of action that would be implemented because, whenever you're involved in any type of situation, like martial arts, I'm involved in. If you try to do something that doesn't work, you have to go to plan B and then plan C until you run out of plans. And that hopefully is not going to happen.
But I love the passion and fire that's, you have to run up against those obstacles to get a breakthrough, right? I mean, so sometimes they're good news.
Right. And I did a talk at one of the churches here and was packed a week ago this past Saturday. And then over 10,000 people watched it on Facebook, watched the presentation that I did, which was actually with Dr. Ted Corin. He was there too, the guy that does all the intuitive healing.
Yeah, fantastic. Well,
okay,
good. I'm glad that I'm glad that you're active in your community. I just did a talk about leaders and healers needing to get active in their community. It's so interesting how so many of us are congruent, and in our own spheres of influence, we're doing a lot of the same things. I love your passion, Dr. Mike. And what about our nutrition? So let's
get that 1 second. But I met Robert Kennedy Jr. also last Monday. And I gave him all of my information because I'm telling everybody now, all the individual states that have the same similar problem, you have to go to the state constitution to try to find, because the U.S. Constitution with the First Amendment is a little ambiguous. It doesn't really get into specifics, but the New Jersey Constitution says that no child can be segregated in public school due to their religious conviction. That's in the Constitution, which is very powerful. But anyway, nutrition. We are what we eat. And
we are what we eat.
You've heard that before. And everything that we put in our bodies either helps us to do better or not to do so well. And there's no such thing as, I eat a lot of good things, so I can just eat this, whatever, and it's okay. It doesn't work like that. Just like, for example, with radiation. The only safe level of radiation is 0. So anytime you get exposed to X-ray or cosmic rays, you end up increasing your chances of bad things happening to you. So Dr. Van Merkel started Science-Based Nutrition. He's located in Dayton, Ohio. And I've been in touch with him. I want to get him as a guest on my TV show next season 2. But he came up with this whole idea that he was doing, nutrition. It was very time consuming, coming up with all the different tests that were done and trying to figure out what nutritional supplements to give. So he came up with this whole automated program where you go online and enter some data, and actually through LabCorp or LabCorp, depending on how you pronounce that, or Quest Diagnostics. Those are two of the major ones that we deal with. that it automatically goes into the patient's database. And also we use doctors' data. They're out in the Midwest, and they're very good for hair analysis and urinalysis. And what we do basically is that, it doesn't matter, he says, what disease, disorder, or malady you call it. If you're out of balance and you become in balance, then it goes away and you're healthy. Because the only reason, and we discussed this before in previous podcasts, in one simple sentence, the only reason we don't reach our maximum health potential is a combination of excesses and deficiencies. So you want to be in that Goldilocks zone, not having an excess and not having a deficiency. Now, certain things, like I said before, like X-ray, there is no deficiency of X-ray because X-ray doesn't really help us. And by the way, X-ray is very similar on the electromagnetic spectrum to cosmic radiation, and God's infinite wisdom, he or she created the earth in perfect balance, and we have the Van Allen belt around the earth that protects us against cosmic radiation. And that's formed because of the earth having a north and south pole and creating this field around the planet that protects us against cosmic rays. But that's maybe one of these days we'll just talk about the earth and the miracle of our planet. I think that would be a good topic, and talk about all the things.
So great. I love it. I love the whole Gaia. I love the whole Gaia thing. It's very hip.
And just to tell you something which is kind of related to all this, but not exactly, that I've had some problems with people in my building not recycling. And last week I go to put out the garbage, and I find all these paper and cardboard and plastic and glass all thrown in the garbage. Now, the only thing worse than picking through the garbage, in my opinion, is to let it go to a landfill. And I could not do that. Just like, for example, with this whole thing with the vaccines, if I know I can do something to prevent death or injury to people and I don't do it, I'm just as guilty as the people that do it in my mind, because I could prevent it. Just like, for example, to respect the planet. And the two greatest gifts God gave us, the planet Earth and the human body. And today's topic is not the planet Earth, that'll be a topic for another day, but the human body. So what we have to do is we have to respect that gift. And unfortunately, many people are not good stewards of that gift. They're not taking care of that great gift that's given to us, being our bodies.
I think they're not plugged into that perspective. They don't see it. They don't see it like that. I think it's a lack of awareness,
It is. And also a lot of younger people too really believe, I'll worry about that later on. There's plenty of time to get to that. I don't have to do it right now.
Yeah, well, even our generation, even when we were young enough to be in that state of mind, at least the wisdom that we have now, we can at least tell the younger generations, nah, the time is now, and the issues at hand are greater now. I mean, it is really pretty. It's a pretty interesting landscape out there, don't you think?
It is. Exactly, because when we were young, we didn't have all the EMF, all of the cell towers and the smart meters and all these different things that we have today. We didn't have the genetically modified food. We didn't have all of the toxins in our environment. We didn't have Roundup, glyphosate. We didn't have all of these things. And I love that one poster, if you've ever seen it. It shows the Norman Rockwell, painting of the farmer and his wife.
Yeah.
It says, eat organic, or as your grandparents called it, food.
Right.
Saw that.
Yeah, food. Eat food.
Right.
Not some.
Because everything was organic back in the day.
Yes.
There was no such thing as non-organic.
Yes.
But that leads to, to try to, and the Environmental Working Group is a great organization, and they come up with their Clean 15 and their Dirty Dozen every year. The Clean 15 things that you can buy conventional and not really be, hurting yourself too much. Like onions, for example, avocados are fine to buy conventional. And then you have the Dirty Dozen. They're just the Clean 15, Dirty Dozen. They just rhyme. I think that's why they made them up. It always bothered me there's not an equal number on the two sides, though.
I know, we like balance, don't we?
Like balance, right. But for example, strawberries, which come from California, a lot of them, very, very toxic, very important to buy organic. Peaches, the same thing. Lettuce, the same thing. And so we should try to limit our toxicity, but the whole system I've come up with is kind of like a military way of looking at things, because there's a certain number of things that we have in our environment that's trying to get us. So it's almost like a battle going on. It's a war raging out there between, things that are good for us and things that are bad for us. And unfortunately, a lot of times we don't know something's bad for us. We might think something's good for us and it's not, and vice versa. Growing up, margarine, my grandmother would cook with margarine all the time because she thought margarine was great. It contains trans fats. It's very bad for you.
Carcinogens.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And when I was in chiropractic school, I was taught eating sugar can't give you diabetes. That's what they taught us. But that's what they taught in medical school too back then. And as we know now, it's not a good idea to eat a lot of sugar. And the food pyramid being upside down, that'll be corrected someday with the U.S. Department of Agriculture. But as the joke goes,
I'm praying for it. Yeah, we're praying for it. Turn it on its head.
Right. Because carbohydrates produce a lot of oxidative stress. They age you prematurely. And eating a more of a ketogenic diet with healthy fats is a tremendous thing for longevity. All right. I want to get to the topic of the day before we run out of time. We test the hair, the blood, and the urine. Now with the urine, it could be just a standard urine test, or it could be what's called the urine chelation challenge test, which we'll get to in a minute. But we have to do a lot of different tests. For example, I like to always test for C-reactive protein, which is not in a standard yearly test that you get, and it should be, it will be. I remember reading a story when George W. Bush was president, not the father, but the son. And his doctors did a C-reactive protein test on him. And they didn't even have a normal range. They weren't even sure what was good. So that isn't all that long ago, but now this should be done on a yearly basis. Homocysteine is very important to check too, which isn't in a regular test. Homocysteine is an amino acid. And the problem with homocysteine is that a lot of people have a genetic predisposition not to metabolize it. And it's the MTHFR gene. And we won't even say what that sounds like it abbreviates when we go there. But that gene is, you got that. That gene, a lot of Asians have, a lot of Europeans have. If you have that gene, your homocysteine is sky high. Homocysteine breaks down elastin, which are in the blood vessels. So you'd be much more prone to hemorrhagic stroke and heart attacks.
Got
if
it.
you have high homocysteine. So certain things should be checked and are not checked by medical doctors with their traditional standard blood tests. They don't check for heavy metals usually at all unless somebody exhibits a sign of heavy metal toxicity. But there's a very important principle.
I've been seeing that more. I've been seeing heavy metal toxicity more, or just getting that. I have somebody that I send people to get that stuff tested. But why are we seeing more heavy metal? Where is it coming from?
Well, it's coming from a lot of things. It's coming from, of course, the mercury in the seafood. It's coming from there. But then also, people don't realize it.
Aluminum, too.
Aluminum, yes, and deodorants, aluminum.
Oh, yeah.
When you have alum, which is put into baking soda and put into grated cheese to stop it from clumping. And then you have barium, which is like, if anybody has any
borax.
Contrast tests of barium enemas for like x-rays taken with that. And then you have, and even, for example, nickel. I only found this out a couple years ago because I'm in a constant process of learning. And I didn't realize that stainless steel contains nickel. And sometimes when people make bone broth, they have to let it, cook for like a day. And the nickel leaches into the bone broth from the stainless steel.
Wow.
That's why you're much better off using like a ceramic pot with good clean ceramic, because sometimes ceramic from China can have heavy metals in the ceramic. So it's almost every time we turn around, you have to trust your source. You have to trust where you get things from, that they're telling you the truth. Because a lot of times, even now, they have prescription drugs that are counterfeit, the counterfeit prescriptions, and sell them to people. And, there's a very special place in hell for people that do bad things.
Right. That consciously misdirect or consciously,
right. That can hurt people.
Yeah.
And like I said, I go the opposite. I go to the point where if I could do something to help somebody and I don't do it and something happens to that person, I accept responsibility for not doing that. And that's the opposite way. It won't be like the last Seinfeld episode where they got arrested for not being good Samaritans. That was a great episode, by the way. So we look for balance in the body. And it doesn't matter, like I said, what disease, disorder, or malady you have. If you get the body balanced and you get in that happy zone, for example, where is that happy zone? If, say, a blood test is supposed to be between 100 and 200, is 199 okay? Well, according to your blood test, it is. You're within range. It's between 100 and 200, 199. But is it really good? The answer is no, it's not really good. By the way, by the time people see this, it'll be way over. But tonight, the Jeopardy fans out there, that I believe Ken Jennings won because he won 2 out of the 3. And they said tonight's the last night and you have to win 3 matches to win. So kind of like people that are semi-good at math, it takes the fun out of it. But I think he probably won. But that's a show I would not do well on because there's whole categories I know nothing about. But the science and math and stuff like that, I think
that's your wheelhouse. Yeah, that's your
my
wheelhouse.
And everybody has the wheelhouse because God's, I think I might have mentioned to you before, God's given each and every one of us at least one special gift.
Oh, I am a firm believer in superpowers. And I think that the way that the energy is on the planet, and you'll have to excuse me for getting a little astrology. I'm from California, but the energy of the planet right now, we have an opportunity to raise our consciousness and frequency at a higher level. And we need to, because we've created a big mess that needs to be cleaned up, right?
Yes. And now I really believe when you're talking about higher consciousness, I really believe that all the stuff that I came up with when I started writing that paper, and so many people have told me it's unbelievable. It's almost like, and lawyers can come up with this. And here, I never had one law class in my life. And I look at it from a martial arts perspective. And sometimes a lawyer told me, sometimes it takes somebody outside of the area to look at something from a different perspective to come up with a solution.
Yes.
And I believe that to be so. But anyway, I really think I tapped into, being sent information, whether from God, an angel, universal intelligence, whatever it was. I really feel that, it just flowed. And I appreciate wherever it came from.
Yes.
If you're out there listening, I appreciate it.
I know. Whether it's tapping into the collective consciousness or God or supreme power, whatever. Right. I believe in those divine moments where information comes through us and we channel, and you get obsessed with it, right? And that's how you know it's it, because it comes through like a hurricane or like it's a powerhouse. It drives you. The passion drives you.
Right. But without giving away the secrets, there's also, I can always guarantee that the vaccine law will never become law in New Jersey, because I came up with a strategy that it's about a 1 out of a billion chance of it not working. A legal strategy that's never been employed in the history of our country. But that's a story for another day.
That's a story for, I love, Dr. Mike is famous for his cliffhangers on my show. That's a story for another day. That's a story for another day.
So anyway, 100 to 200. How many more minutes do we have? Just a
few more minutes. We really should wrap it up.
Okay. 100 to 200 is 199 good? And I think I might have told you before about this. Moses did not come down from the mountaintop with the, lab normals on a tablet. They're man-made. So it's not good. We want 125 to 175. The center cut, the middle 50%. That's where you want to be. So and science-based nutrition is very easy to see on the charts because they have over here on the chart over there, just to show you that there's white, leave it up there. There's white. White is good. Yellow means it's in that area, not the 50%, but still within the normal. So in the top 25 or the bottom 25%. Then red means outside, above or below, and blue, like code blue, you're in trouble. It's several standard deviations from the norm. So it's very easy color coded for people to see. So basically you want the blues to the reds to the yellows, and the yellows to the whites. And when everything is white, you're in the,
that Goldilocks zone.
Center area, and then doesn't matter your diagnosis. You're healthy. Your body's functioning all cylinders. Because you hear about too many people having problems, like for example, like a heart attack, but they felt fine before. Healthy people do not have heart attacks. Last time I checked.
Right.
So this is what I started to get to before, but I didn't finish. That with Western medicine, we look at things very symptomatically, but Eastern medicine looks at things preventatively and trying to solve a problem before it comes about. Correct. And that's really what this whole thing is based upon. So by looking at the hair analysis, now it's interesting because when you look at the hair in the chelation urine challenge, first of all, you look at the hair and you look at the urine, which is like the normal urine, which is in the chelation challenge with DMSA, you see what's being expelled from your body naturally. But then when you use the DMSA, which is a oral chelation agent, you see how you get rid of things. And for example, I was testing a couple of my patients. I might have mentioned to you before about the uranium. I tell you about the patients with the uranium toxicity.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, because they had over 150 times the uranium you should have, but they lived in an area where their groundwater contains uranium. Nobody ever tested them for uranium before. And the one patient had lymphoma, had to have her spleen removed, and the son has all these seizures. And I believe they're all related to the uranium toxicity. And also chlorella and cilantro are two things to detox uranium, in case you're wondering how to get rid of the uranium. That's a free tidbit out there. And chlorella is really good for a lot of things.
I love cilantro. Some people really hate cilantro. I love it. It's so wonderful. I love it. It's really great. So in all of this, I know that, so we're testing all these blood levels and hair levels. What role do hormones play in all of this?
Well, absolutely they play in it because, well, first of all, a lot of hormones are cholesterol based, and somebody has low cholesterol, it's not a good thing. And you find everybody over 100 years of age, you don't find anybody with really low cholesterol because everybody died before they reached 100. So, this whole medical model about driving the cholesterol low isn't really healthy for us. But hormones play into it. And also what we do sometimes, not right at the beginning, but we do a male or a female hormone panel to see. But a lot of times you don't have to do even bioidentical hormone replacement because, for example, bioidentical hormone replacement isn't really, it's called functional medicine when they do that. But I'm talking about foundational medicine. And the difference is functional medicine more or less just, well, do natural things instead of drugs. Like, for example, bioidentical progesterone from Mexican yams. But foundational medicine says, okay, let's go look at what's causing the progesterone imbalance to begin with and give you the basic, tools that you need, the nutrients you need, so that you don't need to do anything but take food and supplements. And that's really, and of course, lifestyle modification and things like sleep is very important, and, reducing your stress, all these things, and reducing your toxins. But we have to look at all, and I think maybe that's another topic that we can talk about, all the different aspects, what, construes good health, all the different parameters that goes into.
Right, because there's a lot of different layers to our machine.
Yes, but the human body is the most perfect machine in the universe. As far as we know, there was no upgrade anywhere else. We haven't met them yet, the upgraded people.
The upgraded people?
But there was a great old movie with Kurt Russell. It was called Soldier. And they had, I think, the guy that played in the Jungle Book, something, Jason Lee. He was the GMO soldier. So they had the regular soldiers and the genetically modified soldiers. And Gary Busey was their commander. It was a great, entertaining movie. But kind of like The Wrath of Khan, where they were genetically modified people with Star Trek. But that was supposed to be the 1990s.
Hey, Dr. Mike, I know you love movies.
I know, it's time to go.
I want to give you a real quick movie tip. No, I watched a movie this week that I absolutely loved that was referred to me by one of my clients, The Biggest Little Farm. And I love the way that this, they talk about farming, and I've seen lots of information about this before, but the way they put this beautiful little movie together, it's so quaint, and the cinematography is good, and the way their storytelling is so good. The Biggest Little Farm, so awesome.
Have to check that out.
It takes them 8 years to get it together, but they took a place that was completely desolate, abandoned farmland, hard as rock, and created a living ecosphere. I mean, just beautiful. They showed over the 8-year period how first the birds came, like nature came to them once they started nurturing the land where they were at, how it was intended, and started farming in a way where all the levels were respected. They created this beautiful ecosystem on their ranch.
That sounds great.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I think you'd really enjoy it.
I will.
Anyway, I love my time with you. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Mike. I'm sure we'll speak again. And can you please give our listeners some contact information for you, just in case they want to reach out?
My website is drevangel.com, which is DREV, then Angel, ANGEL.com. And you can get all my other information right from there. That's my contact information. And just remember one last parting tidbit of information, that two of the most important things as far as being healthy is keeping your inflammation low, not to have a lot of inflammation is a hallmark of chronic disease, and also the health of the mitochondria. Maybe another show we could talk all about mitochondrial health.
That's very interested. Important. That one interests me because I'm not sure I completely understand where that fits in and everything.
Oh, you will after we do the podcast.
Thank you so much for connecting all the dots.
Great talking to you. It just flew by.
Yeah.
Have a great day.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye now.
Bye.